Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
It's Felix Sharpe. This is Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network. This is your college football show on this network. I'm usually joined by one of Austin Nace, Matt Bruning, or Chris Moxley. Everyone decided to take a vacation. Chris is in Iceland somewhere looking at foxes. So I had to call in a pinch hitter, Mike Vallerie from Campus2Canton.com, one of our Demi analysts. Mike, I'm going to get to you in a second. But if you have not checked out Campus2Canton.com, you should go ahead and do so. It's the best fantasy format that there is. It's essentially dynasty fantasy football with an NFL team and a corresponding college team where you are actually starting a lineup every single week and playing college fantasy football. And then when your players declare for the NFL draft, boom, they're added to your NFL roster. So Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, those guys, Bijan Robinson, who were just drafted, they were already scoring points for me in my leagues. We're going to get to Bill Connelly's list of top 75 quarterbacks in the 2000s. And I think this is going to be a quarterback-centric show because I'm going to talk about some underrated quarterbacks, my general top 10 for C2C leagues. But before we do that, Michael, and I'm calling you Michael now because I told you what we were going to talk about today. And I said we're going to talk about the top 75 quarterbacks in the 2000s. And Mike, your response was what?
My knowledge doesn't go that far back.
Because in the early 2000s, you were how old?
6. I was 6.
Do you remember the early Miami teams? Ken Dorsey with Andre Johnson, Willis McGahee, Najee Davenport, Frank Gore. That's not, in your memory.
That's right. But I did watch Frank Gore. I don't know who didn't, but I did watch Frank Gore eventually.
Well, he played for 25 years, but so yeah. Eventually you watched him.
Timeless.
But you don't remember. Okay. There was a pass interference.
Okay.
Miami, this was one of the classic football games. Miami was playing another team in this national championship game. Do you remember who that is? Who that team was?
Was it the Patriots?
Goodness. Was it the Patriots? You know what, Matt? You're going to get fired. You're going to get fired. It was Ohio State, and the player that the pass interference was called on was Chris Gamble. Chris Gamble, who played both ways at Ohio State. He played wide receiver and cornerback. And there was a late pass interference that they were throwing the ball to Chris Gamble on a fade, called pass interference. Ohio State ends up winning the game. You don't even remember the Maurice Clarett era at Ohio State, do you? That's just not there.
None of it.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. What? Okay. Tell me, give me the earliest, the favorite player that you have that you remember watching at the earliest point in your lifetime.
I have to a little bit because I didn't really play football until my senior year of high school.
Michael, stop meandering, stop beating around the bush, and reach all the way back into your young mind and give us the player that you remember cheering for or liking as the earliest point in your lifetime. Answer the question.
Probably Terry Wilson and JoJo Kemp from Kentucky.
See, people don't remember Terry Wilson from Kentucky, but Terry Wilson, that's like 2000, what, 15? 16, somewhere around there?
That's exactly right.
So we're talking about, is that Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield? I'm trying to think of who would have been like the national names because those two played for Kentucky. I hate to break this to you, but nobody at that point was watching Kentucky football.
That's right. It was the Joker Phillips. It was the Joker Phillips era, so no one was watching.
I don't know that anyone now is watching Kentucky football, but were you at Kentucky at that point?
Yeah.
That's why you like them.
That wasn't. I think you said that was like the earliest players you can remember watching. That was the earliest players I can remember watching.
2015. Okay.
Yep.
I'm disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed in you. It's just all of this, these games. I mean, like the early Florida State and Miami games, wide left on kick. Like you just don't have. I mean, I was young when Nebraska was good, but I still know who like Tommy Armstrong is, and Eric Crouch is probably one of the players that I remember watching early on, winning the Heisman Trophy, running that option offense at Nebraska.
I walked on to Kentucky football team without watching any college football.
Did you make the team?
Yeah. I was practice squad.
How did I not know this?
You know this. We've talked about it before. You know. This.
No, I did not. I did not know this. We'll have to get into that here at some point after the break. I mean, Mike, you're springing stuff on me. You are on Kentucky's practice team. Did you ever get to travel? You know what? Save it. I'm going to think of some questions to ask you, and we'll come back to it after the break. 2015 is Mike's knowledge base. That's where, okay.
Yep.
I want to get into this list. Bill Connelly's top 75 list of quarterbacks in the 2000s. And, I mean, I guess we're getting old I'm getting old because all of these players, it'll seem like yesterday that they were in the game. Let's start with 75. You'll remember this name. Matt Ryan at Boston College there from 2004 to 2007, 9,313 passing yards, a 60% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 37 interceptions, 11 rushing touchdowns. The thing that I remember the most about Matt Ryan's career was actually when he got to the NFL, his very first pass was against my Detroit Lions, went for a touchdown on an away game. I think the Lions, that was one of the Mike Martz teams, and Mike Martz was our offensive coordinator. And the other thing that I remember is that the big discussion point in the NFL draft that year was the Miami Dolphins, they went Jake Long number 1. And everyone's saying they should have went with the quarterback, Matt Ryan. Teddy Bridgewater, number 74. I don't need to go over all of these stats. Teddy Bridgewater, prolific passer at Louisville. He had one Devontae Parker, who a lot of people thought was going to be the man for the Miami Dolphins and then the New England Patriots.
One of the most elite jump ball receivers of all time, in my opinion. Like that was his.
Oh yeah, super athletic guy. Just could never really put it all together. First round draft pick. He was at Louisville from 2011 to 2013. So that's again, but beyond your time frame of 2015.
Okay, yeah, but I watched Devontae Parker and I studied film because I like the historical stuff. He did have one good year in the NFL, but it was often insane contested catch completion rate because he had a quarterback that wasn't afraid to throw it up there. But he had a 92% completion percentage on like contested catch targets that one year.
It's like a punch to my gut that you're calling 2013 historical. Because I was already done with college at that point.
I was just getting involved. I had my mind on other stuff at the time, but I was watching.
Timmy Chang, number 73. Timmy Chang, one of the swaggiest quarterbacks we've ever seen at Hawaii, playing in that June Jones spread offense down there in Hawaii. Brandon Whedon from Oklahoma State, number 71. Brandon Whedon, who was like 28 when he was a first-round draft pick at Oklahoma State. Geno Smith from West Virginia, 2009 to 2012, 11,662 passing yards, 67% completion percentage, 98 touchdowns, 21 interceptions, 4 rushing TDs. I mean, Dana Holgorsen, who's now at Houston, this is why we look for Dana Holgorsen offenses because they can do things like that. People don't forget, Geno Smith is kind of resurging now with the Seattle Seahawks. He was a damn good quarterback there at West Virginia.
Is this when they had Tavon Austin there too? Or am I just
I think Tavon Austin was there.
Okay.
I think he was. I'm gonna admit to you that I do not remember watching this player play. David Green, number 69 at Georgia. I was in high school at the time, 2001 and 2004. I graduated high school in 2005. I just don't remember David Green. He had a 59% completion percentage, 72 touchdowns, 32 interceptions.
You know what's crazy? What's crazy is that nowadays when you see 59% completion percentage, people are quick on Twitter to call that inaccurate. They don't know how to throw the ball, calling their balls ducks on Twitter. So it's interesting seeing some of these completion percentages. Even I think Matt Ryan too is at 59%. He's probably one of the better passers in the NFL history. And times have changed. Or standards have changed too.
Times have definitely changed because it used to be if you were completing 60% of your passes, like that was elite. That's like the bare minimum now. Like you got to be between 60 and 65, and then it's like Drew Brees is like the elite guys who are completing between 65 and 70% of their passes.
Now I'm looking at Brad Smith here at 68, 2002, 2005, 56% completion percentage, 56 touchdowns, 32 interceptions, and I'm like,
he was a great rusher.
Okay,
great rusher.
I mean, he had to make this list. If I'm just judging off of box scores here,
he was a great rusher. At 67, A.J. McCarron. I remember watching the entire A.J. McCarron, the entire before Jalen Hurts era, even up to the Jalen Hurts era. Alabama's quarterback position was relatively boring, in my opinion. I mean, going back to Brody Croyle. Brody Croyle, who was drafted by the Chiefs. I was never particularly impressed with Alabama's quarterback position.
I wasn't impressed with their kicker either. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I was watching that game. This is my freshman year, by the way. I was a college kicker for everyone listening. And again, I didn't watch college football until I actually went to college. I'm watching the Alabama game, and I watched this kicker miss against Kentucky. Like it was like a 35-yarder. And I'm on the practice squad, so I don't get on the field. I'm sitting up in the bleachers with my girlfriend, and I'm like, damn, I should have gone to Alabama. I could have started day one and won a natty.
Before Nick Saban, that team was not very good. And right up to the point where he said, I'm not going to be the next head coach at Alabama. And then obviously he was. A.J. McCarron's at 67, J.T. Barrett at 66, Kevin Cobb at 65. Kevin Cobb famously, they took the Eagles drafted Kevin Cobb in the second round when they had Donovan McNabb. Andy Dalton, 64. And my boy, Zach Wilson at 63. What are you laughing about?
It's not working out so far. I don't know. You're really putting your name on that one. It's a bold
timeout.
Okay.
Zach Wilson, that last year, 2020, during the pandemic, he was great. He was great.
Those defenses were terrible because they couldn't practice and build up chemistry. That was a really good offensive year across the board for every team. Every team had good offensive years.
Zach Wilson had flair to his game. He would escape the pocket. He would throw off platform, throw down the field. That game, Mike Vallerie, between BYU and Coastal Carolina that they scheduled like that week, where they said they just put the guys that put the equipment on the trucks and said, just get out of here. They needed that 2 or 3 days from Provo, Utah to get to the East Coast. That was one of the best games we've seen in the last 10 years.
I mean, every game is a good game in COVID because everyone was dying for entertainment then. But they had like a week schedule. It was very weak, and didn't they like before that advertise it like anywhere, anytime, anybody? Like they're all puffed.
They did.
And then what happened? What happened after that?
They lost that game. A timeout. They lost that particular game. I think they went 11-1 that year. They lost that game. That was the only game that they lost. They had a chance to win it with 2 minutes left. As a matter of fact, if you don't. Like they had the ball at the 1 yard line. Like Zach Wilson completed a pass like a post, and the guy stretched out for the end zone. He was just a yard short that season.
It's Coastal. This is G5 football.
Coastal was good. Coastal was also good that year.
Yes,
they were they were undefeated or had 1 loss.
And then even for G5 standards, they are one of the best the last 5, 6, 7 years. But like just on a whole scale, the whole scale of college football. Was BYU really that good those years? I mean,
yes, they were. They were. You were supposed to be staying up and watching Zach Wilson during the time. That 2020 season, Zach Wilson, 247 for 366, 73.5% completion percentage, 3,692 yards passing, a 11 yard average. Anything over 10 is elite. He had an 11-yard average.
He was 196.4 passer rating too. Just gonna throw that out there. I don't know. That's pretty insane.
33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. One of the more entertaining college football players that we've seen. Max Duggan is 62. Matt Barkley from USC. I don't even remember Matt Barkley being that good at USC. I mean, 64% completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, 48 interceptions, 6 rushing TDs. I don't remember his era at USC being particularly strong, but here he is at 61. Kenny Pickett at 60. Aaron Rodgers, 2003, 2004 at Cal. Just in that one season. Is that one season or two seasons? 64% completion percentage, 43 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 8 rushing TDs. And you're too young to remember this, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
But Aaron Rodgers sat in the draft room until the Packers took him at like 17. He had this drab look on his face. The kid out of Utah, Alex Smith, was the Heisman Trophy winner and the number 1 overall pick. And the question was it going to be Rodgers or Smith? Well, the 49ers, the 49ers took Alex Smith, and Aaron Rodgers, sat there and it ended up being one of the best quarterbacks we've seen. Aaron Rodgers, teammates with one Marshawn Lloyd there at Cal. Todd Reesing at Kansas, definitely don't remember his era. Patrick Mahomes, number 57 at Texas Tech. 64% completion percentage, 93 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, 22 rushing TDs, 11,252 yards passing. Even, considering air raid quarterbacks, that's filling up the stat sheet right there. Patrick Mahomes, sorry, Bears fan, you took Mitch Trubisky instead.
And before Deshaun Watson, too.
Before Deshaun Watson. Here is Patrick Mahomes, probably the greatest NFL quarterback that we've seen. He's 57 on the list.
Do you remember watching Tyreek Hill's interview after during I think it was a couple years after, but he came out and said that Mahomes, first stepping on for OTAs, he was like, this is a wasted first-round pick.
No, I did not hear that.
Yeah, he came out and said that. This is obviously years after Patrick Mahomes became a thing, but he said, yeah, I really thought that he was going to be a bust when I first saw him.
No, I did not hear that. 56 on the list, Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. Mason Rudolph there with Mike Gundy. I think that this was the James Washington year. And James Washington, drafted by the Steelers. Yeah. They were a fun team to watch, but I don't remember them being necessarily dynamic. I don't necessarily – 2014 and 2017.
And James Washington was a Blitnikoff winner too. Was that right?
He could have been. I don't remember. Remember. I mean, he was drafted by the Steelers. I do remember him being drafted by the Steelers. And then, never really panning out. Number 55 has a special place in my heart, Mike Vallerie. I know you don't remember this because Joey Harrington was at Oregon from 1998 to 2001. 1998, very special year if you were a Michigan sports fan. That's the year that Michigan – what year were you born?
94.
Okay, so you were 4 years old. Michigan won the national championship. Charles Woodson won the Heisman Trophy. Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Randy Moss, and Ryan Leaf there at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. But Joey Harrington, drafted by the Detroit Lions at number 3 overall, I believe, one of the all-time busts at the quarterback position, was just absolutely terrible for us. I know you don't remember that. I don't know how he got drafted number 3 overall. 6,911 yards passing, 55% completion percentage, 59 TDs, 23 interceptions. This was like the start of, or for me, the start of Jeff Tedford putting quarterbacks into the NFL, and he's still kind of putting quarterbacks into the NFL wherever he is. All right, Mike, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to go through this list much faster, and then we'll get to quarterbacks that we care about for 2023. It's Mike Vallerie, Felix Sharpe. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Campus2Canton.
So let's get into some best ball philosophy here.
Yeah.
In your experience, going back many, many, many years, drafting in national tournaments, Bradley, have you historically been shying away from the running back position in favor of wide receivers. In favor of, if you're drafting in the FFPC, tight end premium format, in favor of tight ends as well. Is that the smart play when you're drafting this early in the drafting season?
Yeah, so taking value is going to be huge, and looking at like running backs and wide receivers, like you want to take a look at how the structure is. So you mentioned earlier the FFPC has a couple different types, like they've got super flex and one quarterback, so that's going to change your strategy a little bit if you have only 2 wide receivers or if you're drafting 3 wide receivers. And of course, the PPR is a different aspect compared to other formats or other tournaments. And so keeping in mind the pass catching upside of some of the running backs may be more valuable in those formats. So the Austin Ecklers, the Christian McCaffreys may be more value because they get more receptions, and so like I loved taking late shots a couple years ago on like the JD McKissicks of the world who would get 50 receptions really cheaply. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to like overall value, like you're in the middle of a draft and you just notice that, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Godwin has fallen 14 spots, but Chris Godwin was not in your plans to be drafting. Like maybe you don't have a strong player take on Chris Godwin, or my take is that I don't think the Bucs are going to be particularly good this year. But for him to be dropping, let's say 14 spots is more than a full round. And based on the data that we've seen, if you get to draft a player more than 12 spots ahead or behind ADP, so they drop 12 or more spots, you have an 84% edge over the rest of the tournament players who are drafting this player, because typically this player isn't going to drop. The average draft position is a really strong indicator of where a player is going to go. And I think that is also on the flip side. If you are reaching too much, you're giving up value in your drafts. And so when it comes to value-based drafting, you need to consider, just because this guy isn't my plans or I don't have a strong player take on him, maybe that's your opportunity to sprinkle in some shares of this player at a good price.
When we do a good job around here, Will Chudy, our producer, rewards us with good rejoin music. We do a bad job. Well,
it's Will Smith.
We get treated.
Will Smith music comes out.
We get treated in kind. You can let us know at Better Sports and tag me at Sharpe Review. Tag Mike at FF_Dirty Mike. Who you got, Drake or Will Smith? We've had that conversation a bunch on this show. Get the Better Sports Network newsletter emailed to you every day, including our daily Better Bet, exclusive offers, program alerts, special events, and top moments. Register for free right now at bettersports.com. Mike, the quarterback position has come a long way. Joey Harrington was a Heisman Trophy finalist and was the number 3 pick to the Lions in 2001. Do you want to hear his stat line his senior year?
I do. Actually, I do. Let's hear it.
His stat line, he completed 58.8% of his passes, so less than 60, 2,764 yards passing, a 7.6 yards per attempt, 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's like Devin Leary. That's like if Devin Leary was the number 3 pick in the NFL draft. I mean,
it's pretty bad. Of the last 10 years, only 2 quarterbacks have thrown less than 3,000 yards in a single season that's been drafted in the first round. It was like Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor, I think.
Tyrod Taylor was not a first-round draft pick. It had to be somebody else.
I got to go back and look. But it was only 2, though. I remember this because everyone's talking about Will Levis. Will Levis never passed over 3,000 yards in a single season either.
Yeah. There we go. Joey Harrington going number 3 overall is like Will Levis going number 3 overall. Let me get through this list, and I want you to tell me, well, we'll talk about it. So that Joey Harrington was number 55. Keenan Reynolds, Navy, number 54. Brad Banks from Iowa, number 53. David Carr, 52 at Fresno State. Dan Lefevre, Central Michigan, Chippewas, chip up. 2006 to 2009 there in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Denard Robinson, Michigan at 50. Jordan Lynch, Northern Illinois, 49. Kyle Trask, Dan Mullen's old quarterback there at 48, throwing to Kyle Pitts. Eli Manning, 2000 to 2003 at Ole Miss. Brady Quinn, number 46 at Notre Dame. Eric Crouch, the aforementioned Eric Crouch, who got here on the back of his rushing. 3,434 yards rushing, 59 rushing touchdowns. Of course, was a Heisman Trophy winner. Scary with the ball in his hands, running that option offense. Byron Leftwich at Marshall, number 44. Aaron Murray from Georgia. No, I don't think any of these Georgia quarterbacks deserve to be here. I'm sorry. Aaron Murray, number 43. He comes in at 43. Colt Brennan, another Hawaii quarterback, here at 42. Colin Klein, Kansas State at 41. Alex Smith, a number 1 overall pick at Utah at 40. Let me get here through 30 here. Landry Jones, Oklahoma quarterback at 39. Mac Jones, 38 from Alabama. Stetson Bennett, Georgia at 37. Ken Dorsey, who was the quarterback of those dominant Miami teams. He comes in here at 36. Chase Daniel, career backup in the NFL at 35. Had a great career there at Missouri. Graham Harrell, another Texas Tech quarterback, here at 34. Another Mike Leach quarterback. Troy Smith, a Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State. They got smashed by Florida in that national championship game. Another Heisman Trophy winner comes in at 32. That's Jason White from Oklahoma. Colin Kaepernick from Nevada, 2007 to 2010. Listen to this stat line. 10,098 passing yards, a 58% completion percentage, 82 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, but on the ground, 4,112 yards, 59 rushing TDs. That's in 3 years. He put together those stats, running the pistol offense there at Nevada. And then Rex Grossman at 30. I think of these names, Mike. I don't know that you remember any of these names, Mike, other than Stetson Bennett. But Ken Dorsey, again, he's one of the he was the quarterback for one of the all-time eras for any team at Miami from 1999 to 2000. I mean, you look at half of the first rounds during that year, and it was all Miami Hurricanes. Alex Smith, great dual threat there at Iowa. And then, Byron Leftwich at Marshall. I think the thing that folks will remember, who are old enough to remember, Michael, is Byron Leftwich had this game, and they were on a last drive, and he broke his ankle or sprained his ankle, something. And so his offensive linemen are carrying him down the field. Great image, carrying him down the field so he can take the snaps. And they actually won that game. So that's what I remember about his career there at Marshall. 29, Justin Fields. 28, Ben Roethlisberger at Miami. Justin Fields, of course, at Ohio State. Pat White, number 27 at West Virginia. You don't remember Pat White, Mike?
No.
Pat White was, like Michael Vick there at West Virginia. Again, another guy, a dual threat guy, 6,049 passing yards, a 65% completion rate, 56 touchdowns through the air, 23 interceptions, 4,480 yards rushing, and 47 TDs. Rich Rodriguez, who ended up, being Michigan's head coach, and then I think he went to Ole Miss in Arizona. Just that was the heyday of the Rich Rodriguez era. Rich Rodriguez still coaching, by the way, at Jacksonville State. Rich Rodriguez. I think he might be close to 70. Will, if you can let me know I know he just had a birthday, Rich Rodriguez did. Please let me know in the chat, Will, how old Rich Rodriguez is. Russell Wilson at 26 from NC State and Wisconsin. Jalen Hurts at 25 from Alabama and Oklahoma. Case Keenum at 24, Houston. Carson Palmer at 23 from USC. Phillip Rivers at 22 from NC State. Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama's quarterback there at 21. CJ Stroud here at 20. Mike, as we get higher on this list and closer to the number one overall player, we're getting more and more modern guys because, offenses stopped running the ball so much and they started relying on quarterbacks' completing percentage and getting that completion percentage up.
Yeah, I often talk about in the NFL how football is always evolving, right? They have these coordinators that got to stop whatever. It used to be like power running backs, and then they got to stop the running backs and they start going with faster guys to go around the edge. And you saw a lot of lighter running backs be more successful between 2000, 2012. And now we're kind of going more to a committee role. Anyway, football is constantly changing. You can kind of see that with these names here and even these stats. I kind of commented on the completion percentage earlier on. Football is always changing. I kind of always find that really cool that these amazing coaches are figuring out ways to win.
We saw that Joey Harrington, he was the number 3 overall pick when he came out of Oregon. 59% completion percentage, less than 3,000 yards passing. CJ Stroud completed 69% of his passes for his career.
Nice.
For his career at Ohio State. So you see the difference between 2022 and 2002, the 20-year difference as to how the NFL has changed. And the funny thing about Harrington and Stroud, both of them pocket passers, both guys that were going to beat you from the pocket. They didn't move. So from a skill set perspective, very similar styles, but obviously the game having been changed, using the wide field, getting easy throws, scheming wide receivers open and being pass heavy has lended itself to CJ Stroud having just these excellent numbers. 69% for his career. 69% for his career. Joey Harrington's was like 55% for his career. Bryce Young at 19 from Alabama, Heisman Trophy winner. Andrew Luck from Stanford at 18. Matt Leinart, Heisman Trophy winner at USC, number 17. Jameis Winston, Florida State, 16. Sam Bradford, Oklahoma, 15. Kellen Moore, Boise State, 14. Johnny Manziel, 13 from Texas A&M. Colt McCoy, Texas, 12. Trevor Lawrence, Clemson here at 11. Kellen Moore and those teams, those Boise State teams, Mike, Boise State was a giant slayer in the bowl game. That was a team that you did not want to see because they had all these trick plays. Kellen Moore, who's obviously now the offensive coordinator, is it the Chargers? Where did Kellen Moore go? He's the offensive. He's not with the Chargers.
Yeah, Chargers.
I thought so. The Chargers offensive coordinator, excellent, 70% completion percentage for this guy before becoming a Detroit Lions NFL draft pick. True story. This is a true story. I was on my way to the bank in downtown Lansing one morning, and I'm driving. I pull over because I see Coach Chris Peterson, Boise State's head coach at the time, walking down the street. This was a Saturday, and they were playing Michigan State later the next day. I think it was the next day. I think this was a Friday. They were playing Michigan State the next day. He was walking downtown. I pulled over. I said, Coach, he was like, what's going on here? I pulled right over, asked to take a picture with him. And I told him, thank you for Titus Young, because Titus Young came from Boise State and he was playing with the Lions at the time before he had some personal problems. So I told Coach, thank you for – and now Chris Peterson is on Fox Sports, I believe, is a commentator for Fox Sports after he left Washington, retired from football. You don't remember the Johnny Manziel years. You don't remember this.
I remember that. I do remember that. I watched some of that. I do remember that.
And as Will adds in the chat, Brian Harsin rode his coattails and people thought he was actually a good coach. Brian Harsin following Coach Peterson there at Boise State. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. That's
true. Will is an Auburn fan, so so Brian Harsin, special place in his heart for Brian Harsin. All right, are you ready to get into the top 10 here? Into the top 10, because I need to.
I recognize at least one of these names here.
Get out of here. Get out of here, Mr. I was born in 1994. Robert Griffin, number 3, a Heisman Trophy winner. Lamar Jackson, number 8, another Heisman Trophy winner. Kyler Murray at number 7, another Heisman Trophy winner. Deshaun Watson, number 6. Joe Burrow, number 5. Tim Tebow, number 4. Vince Young, number 3. Cam Newton, number 2. And the number 1 player on this list, Mike Vallerie, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. Now, I think this top 10 is interesting because it feels like there's a little bit of recency bias. Baker Mayfield, from a cultural perspective, I think was somewhat iconic because he was a walk-on at Texas Tech, walked on to Oklahoma, ends up starting and, plants the flag on Ohio State's field and all that. But if I was picking, the 10 best quarterbacks that I've seen in since the 2000s, I don't know that Baker Mayfield would be in the top 10, but I get his cultural impact. I do, but I don't know that he deserves to be number 1, Mike.
I'm not sure he's the best walk-on on the list at this point. I'm not really sure about that. Now, this was – I wasn't paying attention that closely to this, but Stetson Bennett won 2 national titles. I don't know how many Baker's got, but it's not 2. I know that for a fact. And then he's got the draft capital. Yeah, he doesn't have the draft capital, but this is about college football. I just don't – I get that he changed the culture a little bit, but you can say it about a lot of people. Kenny Pickett changed the whole rule set. Yeah, dual threat quarterbacks now too, like Lamar Jackson. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why Baker's number 1 here. I feel like Trevor Lawrence deserves to be much higher than he does, and he's at 11.
From a talent perspective, he definitely deserves to be higher, but I don't really, I just some of these quarterbacks are just a little bit more accomplished, and Trevor Lawrence obviously didn't win a Heisman Trophy. Man, living through the Tim Tebow era at Florida with Urban Meyer, with taking a knee, Tim Tebow in the end zone, Percy Harvin, Aaron Hernandez there at Florida. I mean, that was a different time in college football. Tim Tebow, I think 50% of what made him valuable was his work ethic, his leadership, because there's no question as far as like just talent from like how to play quarterback. Tim Tebow would be like last on this list. Well, definitely last out of the top 10. He might be 76 though, as far as these quarterbacks go. Because if Matt Ryan was 75, Matt Ryan's a better quarterback than Tim Tebow. But he willed his team to victory. He took hits. He was used at the goal line. He was a goal line quarterback. But
yeah, as far as I imagine he was one of the most iconic locker room guys too, probably out there. You kind of said he rallied the troops there. So his leadership ability was certainly pretty coveted there.
He was a real life Captain America.
Yeah.
He was a real life Captain America. Joe Burrow, though, more talented. Deshaun Watson, obviously more talented. People forget how good Vince Young was getting that upset over USC. I just can't believe that you did not live through all of this stuff. You didn't watch those games. You didn't watch Matt Leinart. Matt Leinart was so salty after they lost the national championship to Texas. He said something about how, well, they were just the better team today, but we're the better team in the press conference. Like when they interviewed him after the game. Matt Leinart so salty. He should have went to the NFL after his junior season. He didn't. He stuck around and stayed at USC.
No, I couldn't get into college ball. Like every time I watched it, I was like, why do I want to watch Alabama dunk on these like small schools like 65-0? Like, why would I want to watch that every single weekend? So I had trouble watching it at a younger age.
We've taken the historical perspective. We're going to go to break. But when we come back, Mike, I want to know your top 10 quarterbacks for 2023. I'll give you mine. We'll also give you, I think I got a list of 5 of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football right now, right? That's when we come back. It's Mike Vallerie, Felix Sharpe. This is Campus to Canton on Better Sports Network.
Let me talk to you, Vlad, about an award here that I thought was very, very debatable. And it was Cy Young in the National League. In terms of odds, it's Strider at plus 230, Zach Gallen at plus 215, Clayton Kershaw plus 1,000. Clayton Kershaw, to me, his numbers are phenomenal and better, or at least right there with these other two. Strider was my preseason pick to win the award. But Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000 compared to these other guys with similar numbers in the plus 200s. Like, let's bang on Kershaw and hope he doesn't get hurt, right? Where are you at with that, Vlad?
Yeah, those are great odds. I think the only concern that fantasy players and Dodgers fans had before the season started was innings limitations. Just wanting to make sure that he is fully ramped up for the playoffs. And as some teams do, you sometimes get those phantom IL stints. And we might see that sometime maybe around the All-Star break with Kershaw, just to preserve his arm over the second half of the season. But man, he's a great pick. If you're telling me those are the odds, that's really, really nice. I do love your Spencer Strider pick. I think that's what I would have done in the preseason and bet on him. He's an absolute beast. So, but Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000, those are phenomenal odds. And you mentioned Zach Gallen, he's incredible too. And looks like Arizona has been in the hunt there in the playoff. Well, so far it's early. Dodgers, maybe Padres will be in competition for that division. But yeah, that's a nice three-way race, and we might see some other players pop in there.
Mike probably doesn't even remember these songs. Probably too young to even remember these songs. Mike. You don't even know. It's Felix Sharpe, Mike Vallerie. This is Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network. Get all pro access to Fantasy Alarm for the award-winning DFS playbook covering 10 different sports, fantasy football, and NFL betting, plus tools, podcasts, and Discord chat for a limited time. Get this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50. ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today. Match up to $100 using promo code FANTASYALARM at fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Do that too. All right, Michael, we talked about 75 quarterbacks, none of whom you've watched because you were born in like 2004. And now I want to talk about quarterbacks for 2023. Like, as we get closer to 2023, we're going to have to start previewing conferences, previewing positions, and this is probably, a precursor to that. Let's talk about the quarterback position. But before I do that, Mike, I mean, quarterback is a crapshoot. Can you give me a sense of some things that you're looking for when you're evaluating the position for your Debbie rankings or what have you?
Yeah, so I usually start off with prototypical size. I know that seems kind of ironic because we just watched Bryce Young get drafted. He's pretty undersized. Kyler Murray is being successful right now too. He's also an undersized player, but those guys are still like extremely elite, and they've played against the top competition in college football. But generally speaking, I still stick to prototypical size. So I'm looking for quarterbacks that are like 6'3" plus. And if you're like 6'2" and below, I'm looking for you to offer more with your legs. Like, you have to be a really good scrambler. You have to be a true dual threat, the way Lamar is, the way Jalen Hurts is. So I'm looking for prototypical size. And then obviously you want to see traits. Everyone talked about Will Levis having the traits, but it really wasn't that great of a processor. So I want to see a little bit of both, but the traits have to be there. Otherwise, you're just a very a Will Rogers. No one's really excited for Will Rogers like future, an Aiden O'Connell who just got drafted like in the 4th round. Like, you're fine for backups. You feel like they won't make too many mistakes, but you're not counting on those guys to win games for you.
Yeah, I think for me, I want players who get chunk plays down the field, because you can see a lot of these quarterbacks have high completion percentages, but complete passes around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. I want a quarterback who is getting passes down the field and is demonstrating confidence in throwing the ball down the field. One thing that I always look for with quarterbacks is completing that opposite hash throw. It's a low trajectory throw that doesn't go anywhere. It goes between 8 and 10 yards off the ground. You got to throw it on a line out there to the sideline from the opposite hash. When I can see a player make that throw and have it pop the wide receiver's hands, to me, that shows me that they have an NFL arm, maybe even elite NFL arm, but they have confidence in making that throw, because that's one of the most difficult throws to make. And if you're late on that throw, it's an interception going back the other way for a touchdown, pick 6. And so it takes a lot of confidence to make that throw. And if you can, it's one of those throws that, like, if you can make that throw, I think you can probably make any other throw on the field. Now, I like to see anticipation. For me, anticipation is when the quarterback has released the ball, the wide receiver hasn't turned around, hasn't broke yet. nobody on the defense is looking, but they throw it into a space. They have confidence in their teammate. They have confidence in their game plan. They have confidence in reading the defense, and they've thrown it to a space, and they can get completion. Drew Aller, a guy I saw in his high school tape, make a lot of anticipatory throws. So that is some things that I look for. They got to have a trump card of some kind. So Anthony Richardson, his trump card was his athleticism. Just straight up the best athlete on the field anytime he would hit the floor. Somebody like, Drake May at UNC. He has a little bit of everything. He can play the game from the pocket. He's great in the red zone. He's great in the red zone at finding space. He uses a lot of pump fakes in the red zone, but very athletic. People won't realize this. Drake May, I think he almost had 1,000 yards rushing last year. More rushing yards than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams considered to be, this uber athlete. But Drake May has a little bit of everything. So I think that's what I look for. Do you have your top 10 list ready to give to the people? I'm going to scrutinize it very, very heavily. Okay.
All right. So should I just get right into it then?
Go right into it.
QB1 for me is actually Drake May. We talked about prototypical size. Let me just go into number 2, because this is really the conversation is who's number 1 between these two guys. It's Drake May or Caleb Williams, who is my QB2. We saw Caleb Williams get injured during that Tulane game, and he almost looked like a non-factor without his legs. His improvising skills, it feels like that's where most of his production comes from, is his ability to escape out of the pocket and make plays. But I think Drake May does a lot more in the pocket, but he can also do stuff out of the pocket as well. So he's not like the top tier improviser, but he certainly is very excellent in that category. So Drake May for me can offer more, but I do understand that Caleb Williams is much more elite in the improvising, out of the pocket, scrambling type of stuff.
You understand people are going to say that's a hot take to have Drake May over Caleb Williams. They're going to come after you. What's your Twitter? Give your Twitter handle so the people can come after you.
The Twitter handle is @FF_DirtyMike. You can find my work at Campus2Canton.com. And I don't want to brag, but I was pretty accurate this last year. And actually 2 years in a row, I've nailed the quarterbacks. I said Will Levis wasn't a first round pick. I said he was a second rounder. I said Hendon Hooker would be in the third. And I was right about all that. And the year before that, Malik Willis, I didn't fall for that. I didn't fall for the Steelers are going to get him. They're going to move up and grab him.
All right, give me the rest of your list for 2023.
Number 3, well, it's not 2023, but okay, sorry. Number 3 is Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is my number 3 here. Texas QB looked phenomenal during Alabama before he went down. I know we need to see more consistency in it, but at least we've seen flashes of it. We believe in the offensive weapons there. We believe in the O-line getting better, and we definitely believe in the head coach at there too. What are you shaking your head for? You don't like Quinn?
He's just an overrated player that you haven't. I mean, it's your list. I don't know why you ask me. I just it's Quinn Ewers is the next big time throw that I see Quinn Ewers make will be the first. So, I mean, this is a player who's been overhyped based on what he did in high school in like 2016. Didn't play much his junior year, skips his senior year, goes to Ohio State. We are hyping this dude up based off being, one of the higher rated recruits in the country that we've ever seen at the quarterback position, a number 1 overall rating. I need somebody to show me the game tape that demonstrates Quinn Ewers as some prospect that deserves to be ranked this lofty.
It's
projection
coming.
And all that stuff.
Look, it's coming, and you will see it week 2 against Alabama. You'll see it early. Now, number 4 for me is going to be Kyle McCord. It's just really hard to bet against Ohio State QBs. They have all the systems around them. They have everything set up for them to succeed. We still haven't seen one be like prolific at the next level, but again, this is college football, so we don't really care about that. But I think Kyle McCord here is going to be magic for Ohio State. They just don't seem to miss over there. Number 5, because Felix has no objection to that one. But number 5 for me is Carson Beck, QB here for Georgia. Got to see him in the spring game. He looked like a very good pocket passer. He processed fast. He made multiple reads. His mechanics look clean. Now, haven't seen him play too much, sure. But I'm projecting him. He's going to have a good season. I really want to see him against pressure, though. Obviously, we didn't see that in the spring game. And Georgia's offensive line is fantastic. So I'm not sure how much we are going to see against him. But this, like, as a ceiling, we can definitely see a Mac Jones type rise out of Carson Beck this year.
Keep going. No, I agree with you. Keep going. Keep going.
All right. It's always good to get your employer's approval, you know. The next one here is going to be Michael Penix, which I think Felix is also going to nod his head to. Michael Penix, Washington quarterback here. He's a lefty. There's not a very strong history of lefties succeeding in the NFL. You got Michael Vick. You got, I believe, Vince Young was the other one. And then more recently,
Steve Young.
Steve Young. Thank you. Steve Young. Not
Hall
Vince
of
Young.
Famer.
Yep. Steve Young. And then you got Tua, who's our most recent lefty out there, who looking kind of thick on the field, by the way. I'm just saying, he's looking kind of thick out there. I saw the photos. But Penix has the tools. He has the prototypical size. The main concern, though, is that it might shy away NFL teams because the ball comes out of a quarterback's hand differently when it's a lefty throwing it. And I think maybe some GMs will be a little bit shied away from having their wide receivers have to adjust, like all of them have to readjust to how the ball is thrown thanks to a ball coming off a lefty's hand. So I think Penix is a really good quarterback. I think he's almost a lock to be more of a day two guy, more of a priority backup, kind of similar to a Hendon Hooker. Maybe he gets a shot in 2 years. But Penix is my number 6 in this class right now. Going on to number 7, a little bit of a hot take here. This is kind of doubles down into some underrated guys here. I put Will Howard. Kansas State University quarterback, played in 5 games this past year as a starter, regular season 5 games, and he came away, I think, winning all 5. He lost 1. He was 4-1, but he went off and beat TCU in the conference championship, and then he went and played against Alabama, and it wasn't a poor performance, but again, prototypical size, sneaky athleticism, just like Drake May. He needs to work on that touch, work on that anticipatory throws, but the tools are there, and the little sample size we got to see of him play this year makes me feel really good about him. And I always love quarterbacks that elevate the pieces around him, because Kansas State is not really known for having prolific skill position players there. So I'm pretty excited about watching Kansas State this year. Going on to number. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, you've been talking about Will Howard. Will Howard started. He didn't start at Kansas State. He started at LSU, right?
I believe he actually started at Kansas State. It was a pretty poor start, though. I remember it was pretty terrible.
Well, because of your comments about him, I know that he's a player that I need to go take a look at and figure out where he should be in my rankings, because, as you said, Mike, you've been accurate. So I need to take your word for it and go dive in on him.
Some of these guys, though, like, you'll understand their trajectory by week 4. Like, we'll know if they're it or they're not by week 4, the way they're playing, especially with those non-conference games early. But going on to number 8 here, a guy that doesn't really fit the prototypical mold of a QB, and definitely has been around college football for a very long time, Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman comes from that mesh offense in Wake, where they hold the ball for so long waiting for the play to develop and they make that quick throw. Sam Hartman now has the opportunity to go to a system where he has time to actually process the defense. Now, these quick throws, he was successful doing that quick stuff at Wake. I understand that the completion percentage isn't probably that good, and there's some more advanced metrics that might not look that good, but that's because of the offensive system. Now he has a whole new system to work with, more traditional offense, a more pro-style offense, that if he can be successful in 2 different systems, then I really like that adaptability out of my quarterback there. And he looked phenomenal in the spring game. He gave us a little glimpse of it, but I think he was something like 3 or 4 incompletions, but he got in, did his business, and got right back out. So I think Sam Hartman can have a really good career there at Notre Dame. Number 9 for me, a guy that I elevated a little bit too high last year. I ignored the Josh Gaddis effect, but I'm talking about quarterback Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, a guy that did elevate his offense. He had Charleston Rambo, wide receiver from Oklahoma, come on over. He made him a 1,000-yard receiver, and he was only a UDFA. Those type of quarterbacks that can elevate, the ones that drive the trailer, they're not the truck pulling the trailer, but they're the ones driving it. That's the type of quarterback you want on your team there. So Josh Gaddis sucked the life out of that team. It was terrible. I feel bad for anyone that had to watch the game. I felt bad for the players. I felt bad for the fans. I felt bad for the whole state. And I felt bad for anyone that cares about college football. But he's gone now, and they bring in the OC from Houston in that air raid offense. This is what you want to see. And they have good pass catchers. Xavier Restrepo. They have the big X and JUCO transfer in Colby Young. So I like Tyler Van Dyke this year. I think he can have a bounce back season, and I think he can come back on top of the boards there.
Was that your number 10? And you gave us all quarterbacks who are draft eligible in 2023. I kind of just wanted to get your top 10 overall, but still, I mean, you gave us guys to pay attention to. Tyler Van Dyke had an excellent season under Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley comes from the Sonny Dykes coaching tree. Sonny Dykes comes from, I think Sonny Dykes is either Mike Leach or Art Briles or one of the two. So definitely spread system. Rhett Lashley now the head coach at SMU. I thought that there was a chance that Tyler Van Dyke would enter the transfer portal and head to SMU to play with the coach that he had the most success with.
And there was word that Alabama wanted him. I mean, Nick Saban's out here saying they want this guy to lead Alabama. I mean, he might have had a chance at a natty if he went there. I
mean, and then Nick Saban went and got Tyler Buckner out of the transfer portal. So the one thing I want to say about your list, Michael Penix Jr., who's going to be a sixth-year senior next season, I think that he's a dark horse for the Heisman. I've said it on this show a bunch of times. He had a player who's always dealt with injuries to his ACL. He stayed healthy all season last year. I think that Washington, if they can beat Utah, if they can beat USC, they'll find themselves in the playoff. Those are probably going to be two of their best games. And Oregon, I forget about Oregon, but their schedule, it's going to be favorable. They get some of those games at home. Last year, he completed 65% of his passes, 4,641 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And the thing that I love about him, as I said earlier, I like quarterbacks who throw the ball downfield. Michael Penix Jr. is not scared to throw the ball into tight windows, to push the issue. And he has been on teams that have been underdogs at Indiana, at Washington, and he has elevated their programs. Indiana hadn't beaten Penn State in like 30 years or something like that. And Michael Penix Jr. pulls off the upset victory, taking hits in the mouth and delivering the ball downfield. I love Michael Penix Jr. He's one of my favorite players. I'm going to give you my top 10 really quick here. I got to see how much time we have left. Really quickly here. Drake May. Now, you got to remember, this is for Campus to Canton in general. So there's some freshmen here who we haven't seen play, but they're still very, very valuable players in our format. My top 10 overall. I also have Drake May number 1 over Caleb Williams because I like players who play within structure. Drake May number 1, Caleb Williams number 2, Drew Aller, Penn State. I think that he's going to set the world on fire this year at Penn State. They have two excellent players in sophomores in Drew Aller and Nick Singleton. Dante Moore at number 4, Malachi Nelson at USC number 5, another freshman, Quinn Ewers, your boy, at number 6, Arch Manning at number 7, Cade Klubnik at Clemson number 8, Jackson Arnold, the freshman at Oklahoma, number 9, and Kyle McCord at 10. Mike, I think this is a great year for folks to be tuning into our show because if you're paying attention to college football for the first time in a long time, there aren't a lot of established names. There aren't household names. There are guys who are going to be making plays for the first time this season. We will be here every single week to talk about it. We'll be here next week to talk about it too. All right, peace, everybody.